There comes a moment in every soul's journey where the exhaustion becomes too loud to ignore. The people pleasing, the over explaining, the silent resentment, it all bubbles beneath the surface until one day you whisper to yourself, no more. That whisper isn't weakness, it's the start of a boundary. It's the sacred moment where you realize you have the right and the responsibility to decide what you will allow into your life, your mind, and your spirit. Boundaries are not walls, they are bridges to peace. They are not punishments, they are protections. And when you begin to build them, not out of anger, but out of love for yourself, you start reclaiming your power. Boundaries are not about controlling others. They're about controlling your access points. You can't stop someone from being negative, manipulative, or dismissive, but you can choose how much of that energy is allowed to touch you. You get to say, this conversation isn't healthy for me, or I need space to protect my peace. That choice isn't selfish, it's sacred. There is wisdom in understanding that just because someone knocks at your emotional door doesn't mean you have to invite them in. You are not rude for choosing to stay well. You are not cold for protecting your heart. The real beauty of boundaries is that they teach others how to love us properly. When you show up for yourself with clarity and consistency, you become a mirror. You reflect what respect looks like, and people will either rise to meet you or remove themselves from your space. Either outcome is grace. Boundaries are the quiet architects of self-respect. They do not scream, they do not beg, they simply hold. But here's the truth most of us don't talk about. Setting boundaries can feel terrifying at first. It can feel like abandonment or confrontation or even betrayal, especially if you've been conditioned to believe your worth is found in being nice, available, or low maintenance. But beloved, being easy to deal with is not a spiritual gift. You weren't born to shrink so others could stretch. You were born to take up space with compassion, yes, but also with conviction. Let's be clear. Boundaries are not just about other people. They are about you. Your inner critic, boundaries. Your constant overcommitment, boundaries. The way you talk to yourself when you mess up, boundaries. We often think of boundaries as fences around us, but they also need to exist within us. You are allowed to tell yourself, I'm not thinking that thought anymore, or I deserve rest, or I won't allow shame to be my motivator. The inner world has gates too, and you hold the keys. Sometimes people will say, you've changed, and they'll mean it like it's a bad thing. But beloved, change is the evidence of healing. When you start enforcing your boundaries, people who benefited from your lack of them will complain. Let them. You are not here to be a character in someone else's story. You are here to write your own. And that story, it starts with a line in the sand. It starts with you deciding, this is what I will allow, and this is what I will no longer tolerate. Boundaries will cost you something. They might cost you some relationships, some roles, even some routines. But what they return is far greater: peace, clarity, and alignment. You will begin to recognize yourself again, not the version of you who performed to be accepted, but the version who knows that love isn't earned, it's honored. That version of you doesn't chase energy, they choose it. That version of you is no longer triggered by every opinion because you've built a shelter inside your soul. So today, I invite you to draw one line, just one. Maybe it's a conversation you won't keep having. Maybe it's a thought you'll stop agreeing with. Maybe it's a behavior you're ready to stop excusing. One line drawn in truth and love can shift your entire life. And from that line, a new chapter begins. You get to choose what enters now. Nobody and nothing will affect you the same way again because you finally remembered your peace is not up for negotiation. If you've ever felt like life keeps hitting the same bruised spot again and again, you are not alone. There are seasons where it feels like every word cuts deeper, every silence stings longer, and every disappointment chips away at your spirit. But let me tell you something sacred. You are not broken. You are being built. Just as the body develops immunity over time, your spirit can learn how to protect itself without becoming bitter, cold, or closed off. This is emotional immunity, not denial, not avoidance, but inner strength so rooted it cannot be shaken by what surrounds you. Emotional immunity isn't about pretending things don't hurt. It's about knowing what to do when they hurt. It's about feeling the sting, acknowledging the pain, and still choosing to rise. You don't have to harden to heal. You don't have to disconnect to stay safe. Real resilience is gentle. It doesn't roar. It whispers. I've been through this before and I know who I am. The strongest people I know aren't the ones who never cry. They're the ones who cry and then stand up with clarity and courage in their eyes. We were taught to be reactive, to fight every criticism, to explain every feeling, to take everything personally. But beloved, that's emotional exhaustion, not emotional strength. Immunity means you no longer take ownership of things that don't belong to you. Someone else's projections, mood swings, or misinterpretations, not yours. You begin to develop the sacred ability to observe without absorbing. You learn to pause, breathe, and respond, not react. And that one pause, that is where peace is born. You build emotional immunity the same way a tree grows deep roots, slowly, with consistency, and beneath the surface. You don't get strong overnight. You get strong every time you choose not to spiral, every time you speak kindly to yourself in chaos, every time you walk away from something that used to keep you tied to your old patterns. Little by little, your nervous system begins to trust you. You become a safe place for yourself. And when you feel safe within you, the world outside doesn't get to dictate your worth anymore. Let's be clear. Resilience isn't about staying untouched. It's about learning how to recover, and you can recover, no matter what they said, no matter what you lost, no matter how long you've lived with the lie that you're too sensitive, too emotional, too much. What they called too much was actually your depth. And now your depth is becoming your strength. You're no longer drowning in it. You're learning to breathe under the weight of it. That's not weakness. That's transformation. Here's what emotional immunity teaches you. Not every comment deserves your energy. Not every situation needs your attendance. Not every battle is yours to fight. You begin to preserve your peace like it's treasure, because it is. You begin to respond to tension with presence, not panic. You become aware of what activates your old wounds, and instead of hiding or lashing out, you ask yourself, what is this really about? That's how healing sounds. Not loud or dramatic, but still quiet and aware. Sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is simply not respond. Not because you don't care, but because you do about yourself. You care about your rest, your growth, your clarity. You care enough to let some things pass through you without building a home in your heart. You are no longer required to hold the weight of every interaction, every emotion, every expectation. This is your release. This is your freedom. The strength you've been chasing outside of yourself has been waiting inside you all along. So today, I want you to hear this deep in your bones. You are not powerless to life. You are not fragile. You are not here to be shaken by every storm. There is a version of you that is already rising, a version that knows how to feel deeply and still move forward. That version is not afraid of falling because they know how to get back up. That version trusts that no matter what comes, you have the tools to meet it with grace and grit. That version is you. And from this moment on, emotional immunity will carry you, not as a shield from life, but as an anchor within it. There's a quiet kind of freedom that arrives when you finally stop needing everyone to understand you. When you release the constant reaching, the subtle performance, the exhausting habit of asking the world, am I enough now? You begin to touch something holy. Approval and rejection are just two sides of the same unstable coin, flipping in the wind of people's moods, projections, and wounds. But your worth is steady, unshakable, eternal. It was never meant to be outsourced. The moment you unhook from needing approval or fearing rejection, is the moment you begin to truly live. Most of us are raised to equate validation with value. We're taught early on, be liked and you'll be safe, be accepted and you'll be loved. So we learn the language of pleasing, we shape shift, we dim, we overachieve, not because we're weak, but because we long to belong. But beloved, belonging that costs you your authenticity isn't belonging, it's bargaining. And what you gain from performing, you will always fear losing. That fear becomes a prison. And your soul was never meant to live in chains. Unhooking doesn't mean you stop caring about people. It means you stop handing them the remote control to your self-worth. When someone praises you, it feels nice, but it doesn't define you. When someone rejects you, it stings, but it doesn't destroy you because you're no longer looking out there to find what was placed in you all along. You begin to see compliments and criticisms as information, not identity. They may describe someone's opinion, but they do not determine your truth. The truth is, not everyone will understand you. Not everyone will celebrate your healing, your boundaries, your voice, and that's okay. You don't need unanimous approval to be authentic. You don't need to convince someone of your goodness to know that you are good. The goal is no longer to be liked by all, but to be loved by the right ones. And the first right one is you. When you learn to stay rooted in who you are, you stop shrinking in rooms that weren't built for your growth. Here's what happens when you begin to unhook. You start saying no without guilt. You start sharing your truth without fear of abandonment. You stop chasing closure from people who were never capable of giving it. And in the quiet aftermath of letting go, you find something far more powerful than approval. You find alignment. You stop asking, do they like me? And start asking, do I feel peace when I'm with them? You stop fearing, what if they leave? And begin affirming, if they leave, I will still be whole. The rejection you once feared begins to feel like redirection. The silence you once took personally becomes space for reflection. The approval you once craved loses its grip. Why? Because you've come home to yourself. You've remembered that no one else gets to determine your enoughness. And suddenly, the fear of not being liked no longer outranks the joy of being free. You realize you can disappoint others and still be good. You can be misunderstood and still be whole. You can stand alone and still be grounded. Beloved, when you stop trying to earn worth, you start embodying it. You show up more authentically. You speak more clearly. You live more lightly. The weight of needing to manage everyone's opinion falls off your shoulders, and in its place, you carry grace. Grace for yourself, grace for others, grace for the messiness of growth. You no longer walk into rooms wondering if you're too much. You walk in knowing you're exactly as you were meant to be. No more auditions, no more masks, just you, fully seen, fully loved by the one person who matters most, you. So today I bless you with the strength to unhook from the applause and the silence, from the critics in the crowd, from the need to be everything to everyone. You are free. Not because the world has finally agreed on your worth, but because you have. And from this moment forward, you get to live like someone who remembers that the most powerful approval is the one you give yourself. There is a quiet, powerful force that lives inside you, a voice that whispers truth, even when the world is shouting fear. That voice, that inner knowing, is the foundation of your self-trust. In a world that teaches you to look outside for validation, approval, and direction, the truest path is the one that comes from within. When you cultivate self-trust, you stop relying on external circumstances to tell you who you are. You begin to believe in your ability to navigate the storms, to make decisions with clarity, and to hold yourself through uncertainty. Self-trust isn't arrogance, it's sacred. It's the deep understanding that you are your own anchor in the chaos. We live in a culture that often teaches us to doubt ourselves, whether through comparison, criticism, or the constant pressure to perform. But self trust is not about being perfect. It's about trusting yourself enough to show up imperfectly, to make mistakes, and to know that you are still worthy of love, respect, and grace. It's knowing that you are whole even in your flaws, strong even in your vulnerability. Self trust is the permission to not have all the answers, but still trust that you will find the way. It is the courage to step forward, even when the path is unclear, and to trust that each step is enough. When you begin to cultivate self trust, you stop second guessing every decision. You stop seeking endless approval from others. Instead, you start to listen to your gut, to honor your intuition, and to make choices based on what feels true to you, not what others expect from you. The voices outside your mind become less loud because the voice inside you grows louder. And when that inner voice speaks, you learn to listen because you know it is grounded in wisdom, not fear. You stop waiting for someone else to tell you it's okay. You begin telling yourself. Self-trust doesn't always come easily. It is built over time, moment by moment, choice by choice. Every time you keep a promise to yourself, you strengthen it. Every time you set a boundary and honor it, you reinforce it. Every time you say, I deserve this, and allow yourself to receive, you deepen it. It is in the small acts of self-compassion, the daily reaffirmations, that self-trust is grown. Trust is not something you wait for. It is something you create day by day with every act of courage and self-respect. Here's the beauty of self-trust. It doesn't need external validation to survive. When you trust yourself, the opinions of others become less relevant. Their judgment no longer has the power to define you because you've already done the deep work of defining yourself. When you trust yourself, you no longer need to explain your choices or justify your decisions. You trust that your path, your journey, and your timing are yours to navigate. This kind of trust becomes an internal compass that guides you, regardless of the noise around you. But here's what many of us don't realize. Self-trust means trusting your process, not just your conclusions. It means allowing yourself to grow at your own pace, to make mistakes without self-punishment, and to understand that your timeline is sacred. We often think trust is about certainty, but true trust comes with a deep acceptance that life is unpredictable and we don't have to have it all figured out. Self-trust says, I may not know where I'm going, but I trust that I will get there and that I'll learn something beautiful along the way. When you trust yourself, you release the need for external approval because you already know you are enough. Your worth is no longer based on how others perceive you, but on your intrinsic value as a human being. You stop chasing validation from the world because you found it within. You begin to understand that your worth is not negotiable. It is an inherent part of who you are. Self-trust isn't about being perfect. It's about knowing that you are worthy of your own love and respect, even when you stumble. Beloved, I ask you today to nurture the sacredness of your self-trust. Be gentle with it. It will grow slowly but surely if you honor it. You are already enough to make decisions, to trust your feelings, to walk your path. Trust that you will continue to learn, grow, and evolve with every step. Trust that you can make mistakes and still be whole. Trust that you are deserving of peace, of joy, and of love simply because you exist. There is nothing more sacred than the trust you place in yourself. We live in a world that often encourages us to move on quickly from our pain. We're told to just get over it, push through, or stay strong. But what if healing isn't about burying the pain or hardening ourselves to it? What if true healing comes not from becoming numb, but from embracing and honoring the parts of us that have been broken, scarred, or wounded? Healing isn't about constructing walls around our hearts. It's about honoring the story that shaped us and allowing ourselves the space to breathe, to feel, and to be whole again. To heal is to give ourselves permission to be soft, even in the brokenness. To heal is to trust that the cracks in us are where the light will shine. When we choose healing over hardening, we choose to stop running from our emotions. We stop pretending that everything is fine when it isn't. Healing requires us to sit with discomfort, to feel the sadness, the anger, the grief, and even the fear without judgment. These emotions aren't weaknesses, they are messengers. They tell us where we've been hurt and where we need care. Healing is the act of listening to these messages without rushing to fix them. Healing honors the emotional depth of the experience without demanding that we bypass the pain. It's saying, I see you, I honor you, and I'm here to take care of you. In contrast, hardening is a defense mechanism. It's the armor we put on to protect ourselves from the vulnerability of feeling. We think that by numbing our emotions, by avoiding the sting, we're somehow saving ourselves. But the truth is, hardening doesn't protect us, it isolates us. When we harden, we close ourselves off from the full spectrum of life, including joy, connection, and intimacy. Healing, on the other hand, opens us. It allows us to feel the full range of emotions without allowing them to define us. To heal is to soften, not to retreat into a shell. It is to be brave enough to say, I'm hurt, but I am not broken. I am willing to learn from this. You see, healing is not a linear process. It doesn't happen overnight, and it doesn't happen in a straight line. There will be days when you feel like you're making progress, and others when the wounds seem to reopen. But that doesn't mean you've failed. It means you're human. Healing is cyclical. It moves in waves. Sometimes you'll take 2 steps forward and 1 step back, and that's okay. You're still healing. You're still honoring the process. And every time you return to your heart, even after you've wandered, you're giving yourself the love and space you need to recover. Healing is not a destination. It's a journey that requires patience and compassion with yourself. One of the most sacred parts of healing is learning to honor the lessons that come with our pain. Pain has a way of shaping us, of teaching us what we're made of and what truly matters. But that doesn't mean we should hold on to it forever. Healing means we release the grip of the past, not by forgetting it, but by understanding it. The wounds become teachers when we allow them to. They show us our strength, our resilience, our ability to rise, even from the darkest of places. Healing allows us to integrate those lessons into who we are now, not as burdens, but as wisdom that guides our future. Healing isn't about erasing the past. It's about accepting it and integrating it into the fabric of who we've become. It's about understanding that the experiences that hurt us are part of our story, but they don't have to define us. When we honor the pain, we no longer let it control us. We allow it to become part of our journey, not a permanent mark that dictates our every move. Healing teaches us to be whole again, not by pretending we were never broken, but by honoring the brokenness as a part of our growth. And beloved, there is a beauty in healing that only those who have truly allowed themselves to feel can understand. Healing allows us to reclaim our light, not by masking the darkness, but by walking through it with faith and courage. The cracks are not a sign of weakness. They are the evidence of resilience. The more we heal, the more we realize that the beauty of life is found not in avoiding pain, but in finding the grace and strength to heal from it. Healing teaches us that softness is not a liability, it is a gift. Softness allows us to love more deeply, to connect more authentically, and to live more fully. So today, I invite you to honor your healing. Don't rush it. Don't judge it. Embrace it. Be gentle with yourself as you process, as you feel, as you grow. Healing isn't hardening. It's not about becoming distant, closed off, or numb. It's about reclaiming your wholeness in the gentlest, most loving way possible. Healing means saying, I honor every part of my story, every part of my heart, and every part of my journey. And in doing so, you create space for the deepest kind of transformation, the kind that doesn't harden you, but makes you whole.